My coffee is still kicking in.
What time is it there? You're kind of late, I guess.
It's 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Oh, so
Yeah.
you had a full day. You're probably like burnt out, ready to go home.
Yeah.
All right. You ready, dude?
Yep. Let the magic begin.
All right, let's do it. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. Before we jump into the normal stuff, I want to give a shout out to Abdullah for leaving some awesome feedback for the Beyond UX Design book, Master Your Craft Beyond Pixels and Prototypes. And don't forget, if you get the book from beyonduxdesign.com/book, you leave some honest feedback, you'll get a chance to win a shout on the show, just like this one, a badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker, a free book, or even a chance to have a one-on-one with me. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book and pre-order your copy today. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin for all their support. And if you want to join those fine folks and a bunch of others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. That's less than $1 an episode. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet, sweet perks for your support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing here, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. This week's episode is brought to you by Figma Academy from Dive Club. Now, we usually talk about soft skills here on the show, but let's not forget how important those hard skills are too. And mastering tools like Figma is crucial for your success as a UX designer. Now, remember back in episode 50, we talked to Tommy Joko, and he talked about knowledge debt and how you'll pay for learning with either your time or your money. Well, if you don't have the time to learn Figma all on your own, Figma Academy is your fast track to mastering Figma, and you'll be in good company too. Over 4,000 designers from industry leaders like Shopify, Microsoft, and Amazon have already signed up. And the course is hands-on. You'll be part of a talented cohort of designers. Plus, they host a live Q&A session every Thursday to clear up any questions that you have. You want your company to foot the bill? Well, lots of designers have done just that. And Figma Academy even offers an expense template to help make it a breeze to get approval from your boss. And because you're all awesome listeners, I've teamed up with Figma Academy to offer you a $100 discount. Just head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Figma and use the promo code BeyondUX when you check out. So we talk a lot about UX education on the show here, and we talk about boot camps and apprenticeships and all that stuff. And I recently came across Alexey Novik on LinkedIn. I don't remember how we got connected, but Alexey wanted to reach out, and he was so excited about his program at Coherent Solutions. I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about it, but they have an apprenticeship program. And I just love talking about this idea of apprenticeships, and I really do believe that apprenticeships is an hands-on experience. Learning the real way things are done in real world is really the way to go. So we're going to talk to Alexey all about that today. I can't wait. Alexey Novik is currently a UX leader at Coherent Solutions, a leading digital product engineering company with an impressive 16-year tenure in user experience design. He's consistently demonstrated his expertise as a department manager, and beyond his leadership role, Alexey's played a pivotal role in shaping the careers of over 120 students, underscoring his dedication to mentorship and UX. As a startup founder with a particular enthusiasm for XR and his specialization in UI and UX design, Alexey skillfully aligns business objectives with cost-effective and efficient solutions for web, mobile, and desktop platforms. Alexey, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you on. How's it going, man?
Great, Jeremy. Thanks for inviting me. This is a very, very impressive introduction, which I would like to comfort myself and say, let's put it a little bit down.
No, man, you've done a lot of cool stuff, and you and I were talking, months ago. Actually, we were supposed to record this, back in, I don't even remember, end of 2023 sometime. But life happens.
13th of December.
Is that when we were supposed to be? Oh, was that Friday the 13th?
Yep.
Was that what that was? Oh, geez. Okay. Well, there you go. That's the superstition stands. So we were supposed to meet. We didn't end up meeting, but I'm really excited to talk to you today. Because when you and I spoke, you told me about a lot of really cool things that Coherent Solutions is doing with their apprenticeship program. And, this is something that I really do believe you can learn all this stuff in a school, you can learn the theory, but until you start getting your hands dirty and actually doing the work, you're not really learning. So I want to talk about that today. Before we do that, tell us about you. Tell us about how you ended up getting into software and becoming UX leader and all that stuff. I want to hear it.
That's a long story. It can start like in the early 2001. It actually happened at the point when I decided, so I'm so tired of gaming. And I said, okay, I'm tired of gaming. I want to do something. So I just started searching on the files on my computer. Let's break something, the Windows. And then like one moment, okay, HTML file, what I can do here. I had no knowledge of any code, of any tags. I just started changing things, saving the file.
Wow.
Whoa, I did some changes. That's how
That
it
is
started.
really cool.
Yeah, curiosity led me from this point. And first of all, you're starting to understand the basics, how everything can be combined together, or how it can work. Then you realize, okay, now I need to make the things to be a little bit more beautiful. Okay, what we can do there. You start in the Photoshop, you start in the other tools. Okay, now you make kind of better designs visually. What you can do next? Okay, let's make it a live website. What should you learn? PHP, SQL, .NET, whatever. So touching everything you can try. Finally, here we are. So the UX role, which I'm returning back year after year and keep working in the industry.
Right on, man. Yeah, that's a fascinating story. I love that you just kind of picked it up and started. There's a people of a certain age. We don't have to talk about how old we are, but a lot of us started with that web design back in the day and kind of ended up getting into UX that way. And it's sort of fascinating to see the differences between a lot of people coming up that are sort of, I don't know what you might call them, UX natives maybe, where they grew up with that role and that concept of what a UX designer is, versus the people who started years and years ago with no concept of what UX design was and sort of fell into it, which is interesting because, and this is something that I think is really important to talk about, because there are so many options now for design. A lot of us back in the day, we learned by doing, right? We learned by trial and error. We learned by doing something and reading books or learning from other people and then failing miserably often until we got it right. And nowadays, there's just so many options out there for people with UX education and boot camps and books and courses and everything else. One of the things we say a lot of, I personally feel like, there are some really great boot camps out there, but there are some really bad ones. And often that idea of UX education, especially for profit, it's not necessarily scalable. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that idea of UX education and maybe how you came to the understanding with your team how to do it differently.
That's a great point. So I totally agree with you that the bootcamp education is usually not scalable. And there are many, many reasons behind that, because I was actually a trainer in two centers where I was teaching the folks UX when I was sharing my experience, giving them the glimpse into the UX work and what happens in the industry and what you should do, what you should learn, what you should know to become the UX designer. And most of the time, I had issues. They were not only with the students, but they were also with the training centers themselves, because this is like boot camps. How long are they? They are like 80, 160 hours total. That's all. You're done. You're a UX designer. Here's your diploma. Go and find your work. So I was sure that this thing is not correct. And during this teaching path, I tried to find the different solutions, and I work with different people speaking like on how do they teach others, what do they do, and what kind of needs do we get in the industry. So they will, the people we educate will become more reliable UX designers. It led me to a series of experiments during my lessons where I tried to find out how it actually works. So I reversed my design work from what we usually do with the interfaces to the work with people. And I tried to find out, okay, what's going to happen if we go this way? And you see, boot camps, I would call them like a small start. We start small, we grow in a certain direction. You experiment with something, you see, okay, this is working, this is not working. And the next boot camp, and you change the flow based on your previous experience. And I had different approaches, but I definitely can say few of them worked perfect. So one of them was like among the first groups somehow I succeeded pretty well there. Every student came to me with a few ideas, and we wrote them all on the blackboard. They explained all the ideas, what they were thinking about, what they want to achieve during this educational course. And everyone in the group was able to vote for the ideas. So we get the number of ideas that equal to the number of the students. And then you had to take any idea from the list except your own. And we came to the point that the designer, every trainee, was not only designing the idea, but they were also product owners of their own idea.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And with this approach, they saw the work from the both sides. They realized, okay, this is how I translate my idea. This is what I can share and what I know, it what I understand. And you had to argue a lot about why this decision should be made this way or another. And it was a wonderful experience. Then when you work with the people, when you see that, okay, so you have the understanding that the ideas are working this way and it could be useful. It helps a lot to the trainees to realize how the complex things are. Then you start working with the people, because I had different, let's say, level of experience and level of knowledge. These people were saying, okay, I do not understand how this tool works. Or somebody was saying, hey, I don't care much about the Photoshop. Give me another tool, give me something else. But again, we are limited with the agreements that we have with the training center. So we usually not able to move a little bit far from what is written there. So it was kind of responsibility when I agreed to the point that, okay, let's try and learn some new things. Because when I started teaching people, we still work in the Photoshop, we still work with the early version of Adobe XD, which was quite a good tool, but still not very consistent and not very like optimal for the work. Again, during the explanation how the websites are built, how the applications are built, there was a projector and a huge whiteboard on the wall where you can write. And I actually projected one of the website and started to draw on the wall just like around. So you see these images, imagine these are rectangles. Then what else do we have here? We have text, we have these blocks. So do not focus on the colors, do not focus on the images, realize what kind of content blocks you have there. And people start thinking, okay, what do we need? We need rectangles, we need something square, we need something round, and we need the text, nothing else. And that's how people realize, okay, the Figma is more than enough for work.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love that idea, though, too, of like getting the students to sort of come in and help kind of shape the curriculum. And I'm curious, so you mentioned a lot of things failed. What did you guys try that didn't work?
The things that didn't work, I guess many things, but I can say that if it's a failure or not, but I let my students do whatever they wanted during the lessons. So the reason was simple. Consider them like school children, like early grades. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do that. They probably saw some YouTube videos and that's all. I left them a lot of a space for failure. And sometimes they failed. They failed hugely. I actually had few people who recreated their own ideas like 2-3 times in a row during this short bootcamp period. At some points they were successful, at some points they were not. So I'm still trying to find the right edge where you should allow them to be absolutely unreachable people doing whatever they want, and find the edge where you can say, hey, you're going too far. Stop.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't want to compare UX students to children or anything, but I have 2 kids and I just think about like if you let them go do whatever they want, they'd be eating like candy for dinner and chocolate all day and TV for hours at a time. You know, so it's kind of one of those things where you want to encourage students to explore things that they care about, but at the same time have a set of guardrails to kind of keep them in line. Keeping them in line, maybe the wrong way to say it, to sort of keep their attention focused on the right stuff or what we believe is the right thing, instead of letting them go off and kind of doing that stuff. So that's kind of interesting. So I just want to also to maybe clarify, I don't know that we really actually specified this up front, but I think it's worth maybe noting is that Coherent Solutions, where you work, it's a consulting agency that, will hire people, and then, you will have clients that you will then build solutions for. So the stuff we're talking about here is actually an internal apprenticeship program specifically for your company. It's not like anybody could just go sign up and learn. You're training employees internally, but you are pulling in people with very little experience. Is that correct? To actually teach them UX, or are you pulling in people who have some experience in UX design, and then sending them to clients, or how does that normally work? Can you talk a little bit about that?
From the design perspective, I can speak from the UX department specifically. We used to work with designers who had some experience, at least those who passed the like long-term boot camps, like 160 hours. But comparing to them, so they have some results, they have some mock-ups, they have prototypes, they have their works. We still do the internal training, which takes around 3 full months, which is uncomparable with any bootcamp you have right now. So this is 3 full months, 8 hours a day. That's how we train our people internally. And the key reason for that is that we want to be absolutely sure that the person who passes the training would be able to do the project on their own without additional supervision. And we train them not to be the best UX people, but also to adopt core processes that happen in the company. Because all the bootcamps, they are not sharing information how actually big companies work. And you need to understand that design is not everything. You still have the back end, you still have the front end, you still have the requirements and everything is connected. You need to test, you need to collaborate to get everything working. And not forgetting about that you have the budget, you have the time, you have the scope, and how everything is connected, because sometimes things are getting crazy. Like past year, I had a project. The product owner came and said, "Hey, we want to make a small feature that we want to deliver next month. Would you like to do something with that?" And we started to talking with the product owner. We started talking with the subject matter experts. We started talking with the developers. And in 3 months, we had a backlog for 6 months of development, and it was not finished yet. So this is a small feature they mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Cool. That's really neat. Yeah. So that's I just love that idea though, overall of being able to teach students real world problems and stuff like that. When you get them in, can you talk a little bit about the process when the way you guys do it? Is there's a school component, a lesson component, and then an hands-on component for the week? Is it like 20 hours learning, 20 hours, work? Talk a little bit about that. I'm curious how that works.
It is a full cycle process. So let's begin with a small thing. So yes, we are given some basics regarding the logic, regarding the reading documentation, understanding the things. Then again, we come up with a few ideas that we would like students to work on. It comes from both sides because every student have their own interests. Somebody is willing to work with the marketplaces. Somebody is willing to work with the mobile applications, maybe specifically iOS or Android. Somebody is willing to do some desktop applications, which can be very, very complex. So we are trying to collect the things together and focus on something that would be valuable for them, for us, and probably for the company in the future. So when the idea is built, we are working on the smaller steps when you need to validate your idea, whether it will be potentially requested by the external audience who would like to work with it, who would like to test it, whether it's feasible or not. It's also valuable because if you will integrate something which will stay in design stage only, this is not good. So from early stages, you keep working with the research parts and you understanding your users. You find the peers who can provide you the feedback on your idea on how they work with this industry. So usually we give them the opportunity to speak with the internal SMEs, or we are helping to find the external ones. So getting like the full cycle of a product, actually. And usually one trainee is assigned to two mentors who are providing the feedback on every stage of their work. Two mentors is always good because you have two different views on the same point.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Yeah.
It becomes more efficient because you need to communicate with the designers. You need to get feedback. And you also need to get feedback from everybody in the other stages because, as you know, you do the design, then it should be developed, then it should be tested, then it should be ideated for the next phases. So again, cycle. So you need to speak with everybody. And if you already also see the point that the person is not ready to communicate with the others, it's kind of a no-go.
I love that you have two mentors because this is something that I've seen people go on the extreme where they'll have, go on ADP list or something and they'll talk to 20 different people and get 20 different opinions and it's completely, it's overwhelming. Like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then people who only talk to one person and just get that one bit of insight. And I love that you do two. And you get, because this is the case. I mean, with UX designers, we don't always agree. We have different methods and different approaches and different perspectives, opinions, and everything else.
Even different experience and knowledge.
Different experience, yes, exactly. So being able to take, those two unique, mindsets, opinions, perspectives, and be able to bring that to the mentee. I love that. That's such a cool idea. I never really thought of that before because a lot of boot camps they'll do like a one-to-one, one boot or maybe many to one. Mentors will have many students. Yeah, but it's often just one mentor per mentee or per student. And I love the ability to have two. That's really cool. I love that, man. Cool. So, how long does this program last usually? Is it, you said it's about 6 months? You mentioned the hours. Was that like 6 months?
Specifically, it's 3 months program. So during this program, you fully do the research, you do the ideation, you do the development of the designs, you do the full presentation with a good storytelling, explaining what, why, when, and how. And this is also a kind of a practice because when you are speaking with the product owners, you need to explain your ideas, your decision with numbers, with values, with the reasoning why your decision should work this way and not another, because everybody has different experience, different vision on the things. So you need to promote your vision. And it's also important. This is kind of a very, very specific point because sometimes you see that people can do very extensive research. They can find all the necessary things to make the product work. But during the presentation, when you start asking them questions, they start failing because they do not pay attention to the things that we researched earlier. And the part that we also paid attention in the process, we are not making it straightforward because when you see the blogs, when you get new information, we're kindly asking, could you please return to the previous steps and check what you should change in there so you could move forward much faster. And there were cases when the person comes to the research phase, gets the information, gets the feedback, and returns say, it's not working. We need a different idea. We need to change things. Otherwise, we will fail. And it is very hard to say these words, especially for the trainee, because most of the boot camps, they are focusing you are expert, you can do absolutely everything. But when you have the research, when you have the actual results, and you see that, no, it's not working, you should be humble to say, no, we are not doing this.
This is what I love the most about the apprenticeship. And you guys have a really unique way to do it because what I've seen from a lot of other apprenticeship programs, though, they might get, a group of designers who don't really know what they're doing. They might find a couple of quote unquote clients to solve some small problem like, oh, I need an app for my plumbing company or something like that, or web design. And they'll go do that. But, that's often not really what a UX designer is going to be doing very often. More often than not, they're going to be working, maybe big enterprise companies, maybe small companies, but they're going to be, doing more business focused problems and things like that. And this is something that I feel like that metrics piece, that measurement piece, this is something that I feel like most education platforms, even, 4-year degree, it doesn't matter. They fail at this because they're teaching something in theory without
Mhm.
any kind of real world context to say this thing that you did here was actually the right approach and it was
Yes.
successful and here's the proof. And so taking those teams and embedding them with actual software teams that are building actual things to then go back later and say, was this actually a success? That is so huge, because it actually, just like you said, it shows you that like you can be wrong and that's okay if you're wrong.
Yeah.
What do you need to do to fix it so that doesn't happen next time? What approach failed here? Was it because of something you did? Or was it because the market was crazy and the market influenced it and that was something completely out of your control? That's something else that like I think a lot of designers often fail to see is that the thing that they're designing is one small part of the overall success of a product.
Absolutely.
It could be so many other things. Where you decide to put the button on the left or the right is not going to make or break the product. Often, a lot of times it's going to be market factors, context that you have no insight into, user behavior that you would have never been able to determine up front, competition, all these other things that,
Even
could be the
culture
internet speed. It
specifics.
could cultures. Yes. It could even be that like you're designing for one culture, but this product needs to go in a completely different culture. So yeah, that's so true. And I love that you guys are doing that. I'm curious, this idea too of like cross-functional collaboration is often something that even the best boot camps can't match because they're only teaching UX design. The best schools can't match this because they're only teaching UX design. So talk to me a little bit about this cross-functional collaboration with the trainees and the students learning on the job with product managers, with engineers, with stakeholders to actually see how this works. I'm curious. I'm sort of like leading the witness, I guess, here, because I feel like they're so strong that this is so beneficial. But talk to me a little bit about what you've seen and how you've seen this help the students really excel just that much faster.
This is a great question. So what happens in our company when the designer finishes the internal training, this 3 months bootcamp on the UX? Usually they are assigned to the internal project where they can fully collaborate with every branch of the development side, and they can speak to the developers, to the product owner, to the QAs, and this is where they are starting to get their first feedback. And it's also different because, like, there are people, like I used to say, there are people who say, hey, I need you to place here this big red button with this wording. And there can be a different person that says, we have this problem. We need to improve this conversion or anything else. How can we do that? And it happens in the same company. So approaches are totally different. Divisions are different. That's why I think that it's really good when we are, while people are working on the internal projects that help us to perform better and to learn new things. While they are working there, we are communicating constantly and we're saying, hey, this is the new feature is coming. How it can be connected to the other platforms, to the other things that we are doing. And sometimes it changes the vision of what should be done completely. And it's just like, again, lightning strike. Yeah, we are doing it different.
It's funny because like I've talked to so many students that have graduated boot camps and have gotten jobs. And that kind of like lightning strike, like you just said, is something I see so often where people just go like, oh my God, I understand now. Like, oh my God, I understand how this is what they were talking about when people say there's no process or, it's not like there's no process. It's that the process jumps around or you end up in the middle of a process because someone else did the rest of it. And, all that stuff. It's like, oh my God, I understand now. That light goes off. And I am so jealous of the people who are able to learn that as they go, and be able to experience that before they experience the sort of traditional school, because I feel like they're just gaining so much more experience. But at the same time, I wonder if there's they're missing something. Like, is there, this is a good question. This question I want to ask you do you feel like they're missing with the hands-on experience? Are they missing the theory versus the practical, hands-on stuff? Have you found that to be the case? Is there something there, or do you set up your instruction in a way that provides for both?
I can say the following, that despite we think that the boot camps are giving us enough information, this is just like the basics where you can start, where you can understand how things are done, what can be done, and how things can be achieved. But in the long term, when you're doing things, when you're even just like doing things in Figma and keep working there, only no research, nothing else, you still start to realize that there is something wrong. And you start asking people, hey, how I can do it differently? What can happen if I do it this way or this way? So everything comes from the communication. And this is the learning point when somebody can say, hey, you should take this course. You should learn these fundamentals. You should try something different. Even internally, we are setting the plans with our employees. Specifically, I can speak about the designers, but it happens in every branch of the company. We are setting the plans. What are you going to learn? What are you going to expertise in the next half a year and year? And we're checking in. So the SMART goals, what do you want to try? How are you going to try? How are you going to measure whether you are doing something successful or not? It's also helpful. So we are focusing on the constant growth, and there is not a single moment when you can say, I know everything. Nobody's going to say that. Even me, from my perspective, I'm the high-level person. So the high-level person means that I understand a lot of things in many different directions, but I definitely can say who else in the company can do one specific thing better than I am. And this is where the collaboration between the designers, between the other departments become the most efficient. This is what makes us really effective teams for our partners, because we are not saying we are working with the customers. We are working with the partners because this is like equal approach. You trust us, we trust you. You give us this information, we work with it. We understand that we are missing some pieces, we're asking you questions. And if you can follow with the details and provide additional information, we will both benefit, because we are not losing time developing things that nobody wants. And you're not losing your money because we are developing things that nobody wants.
Now, I love how you say you're working with partners and not customers or clients. I think that's actually a really important distinction, because when you frame it that way, it changes the dynamic. It goes from, us versus them. The clients are trying to take advantage of us, or they're trying to price gouge and make more money off of us. But when you say partners, I think it changes the mindset across the board and how you approach a conversation, how you approach a relationship. And I love that you're doing that. Yeah.
It's absolutely equal attitude. And we definitely appreciate this approach. Because speaking with our partners, we realize that we both affect the results and the outcomes of what we are doing. And this is the point when we start trust each other much better, because they're gaining some results and they see that it is working. It was wonderful when we are not getting feedback quite often, but sometimes we're getting the feedback like, we are doing some kind of application that looks like crazy stuff, 3-dimensional Excel, but you're getting the feedback, this is the best tool we ever worked with, because we found the exact points that should be solved, and we're helping the people to do their work right way, to do less mistakes, to spend less time in the application, and they are happy. So this is the best achievement, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I love that approach, and I think this is something I always try to say, like product partners or engineering partners or stakeholder, calling them partners, business partners, whatever. I think that just that little language change, just even if you use that in your conversations with everybody, and they know that you think of them as a partner, and then they start to think of you as a partner. And I think there's so much value in going back and changing how we speak and the language that we use. I think that's really awesome. I'm curious, from your perspective, when you get students coming in through your course, through your team, what are some traits that you see in the successful students? Is there something unique about the ones who do really well that you sort of pick up on very early and say, I see that, I think these people are going to do really well?
I guess we can mention a few points here. So first of all, which relates to my interest, is curiosity. When the person is curious enough, they dig into anything. They want to try, they want to learn, they want to fail, and they will succeed with that. The second one, the hard workers. Again, during the training, I had two approaches where I had the main program and I had the secondary one, like tasks with a star, where you need to perform a little bit more and a little bit out of the topics we discussed. And those who performed these additional tasks, they did really great job and they succeeded quite often. The third one, I would say communicators. Those who were asking questions, sometimes very tough, where you got to the point and saying, sorry, I don't know the answer right now. And it was great because it was a learning point for me as well. These three groups, I think, are the main.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely noticed that too. I think the curiosity is really the most important one. And the interesting thing too there is it's not just about curiosity to learn, right? To understand how to do the work. Once you have the job, it's curiosity to uncover the problem, to really dig deep and to not be satisfied with like that one answer that the product manager gave you or something like that, to constantly kind of go forward, and the communication goes along with that. Like being curious is one thing, but communicating the thing you're curious about and be able to actually being able to actually, discuss the things, the problems that you're finding and the things like that with the right people. And then to me, that hard work kind of all goes together in like one kind of thing, right? The grit. I think about determination. I think about people who are willing to put in the effort, constantly being told no, because it happens all the time in UX design where we're constantly being, given, something to do. And we're like, well, I don't think this is right. And you got a better idea or better vision. And, the people who keep constantly at it, trying to change. But then it goes back to communication, being able to communicate that and like help influence the change and everything else. So yeah. I love those three traits. I feel like those are maybe like, I don't know, everybody talks about empathy and stuff, obviously, but I feel like even curiosity builds empathy, right? Like the curiosity is the basis for that. You have to understand and dig deep before you can really have that empathy for a user or for your team or whatever. So those are awesome traits, man. I really love that. Something that you mentioned when we talked a few weeks ago, I think this is actually a really fascinating thing I want to dig into. You talked about trying to shape, the curriculum around the things that they care about most, and you mentioned finding their why. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you talked about, a tool you use, is an experience interest matrix, which I had never really considered that before. And I thought that was like a fascinating tool that you use with your students to sort of help them understand where they should focus. Can you talk a little bit about this matrix and how you use the outcome of this to help guide the students in the right direction?
Absolutely. So this was kind of experiment that came from one of the lessons, the early ones. Specifically, I'm speaking about the early ones because usually every training center starts, okay, you're becoming a designer from the day one. That's not so. So what I tried to do during the first lessons, I see that I need to gain some trust from my students. So we were talking about why they started with the UX, why they decided to become the UX designer. And I think one of the students came with the question, and what else I can be? What kind of my career path could be? We started to think, so what is the most valuable at the moment? We have our starting point, we have our dream, and we have some kind of path that we can create between the current state and our dream. So it was the moment when we decided, okay, what do you know? What is your experience right now? What are your skills? What do you want to achieve? And what kind of interest, what you would like to learn, to do, to think about. And with this, we built kind of a matrix, which allowed us, like, it was still two-dimensional matrix, but we tried to arrange everything together. And at that moment, we realized that, okay, the person that came to me with this question, I think she was pretty good in the mathematics. She had great attention to the details. And she was working as an expert for document fraud. And she said, yeah, I want to become a designer. I work with like graphical things all the days. And I said, okay, and what are your personal interests? And she said, I like to automate things. I like to do mathematics. And I said, okay, so design, mathematics, automation, let's do something different. So when we were filling in the matrix, we find one piece that was saying like machine learning.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I get it. Yeah.
And she said like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. That's what I want to try. And she actually became the good expert in this machine learning industry. So hopefully she's doing pretty well right now in the age of the artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Oh, have you spoken with her recently? Do you know where she's at now? And
I lost these contacts and I do not support them quite often. So my failure, I definitely need to update them.
Yeah, no, I would love to. I would love to know, man. That's really cool. Yeah, I love that idea of the matrix. I'm curious. Have you ever had a student come through that had a really interesting one that maybe was completely unexpected after filling out this matrix? They realized like, oh, hey, this is not at all what I thought, but this sounds really interesting.
Before we came to the matrix, I had two students that I distinguish most of all. So one of them was very young guy who said, I want to be the best UI designer in the world. And he was focusing on the user interfaces a lot. He wanted to do everything like candy style, everything beautiful, everything awesome, everything like cool looking. At the end of the course, he said, UX experience, UX research is the best.
So he went totally opposite, like from UI to UX.
Absolutely opposite way.
Any reason why? I'm curious. What was it about, he going from this visual design?
He was doing the application for finding the restaurant with the specific dishes. And we talked a lot about the scene. And one moment when I saw the bright light in his eyes, like when I said, and have you considered anything about allergies in your application? And when he started thinking how everything is connected, he said, like, my mind was blown.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, that's something that I find often with UX designers, and I do a lot of mentoring and stuff. And what I often hear is, I love designing things. I love making things reality. I love the visual design. I love the layouts. I love the all that stuff. And then when they actually get into the work and they start uncovering insights and questions, and they realize they can connect the dots and actually make an impact and have some positive outcome with the things that they've designed. It really is kind of like, I don't know, mind changing. Is that the right word? Kind of like life changing, I guess, in a way.
Absolutely mind changing.
And I love that. That's something you found out. I love that's really cool. Do you guys have maybe a template? Maybe we could put that in the show notes or something. I don't know if you have something you could share, but that would be really cool to be able to share this with the show notes and get people to maybe fill this out on their own.
That's a good question. So the hardest part about this matrix is quite specific, because to find the connections and how they can be integrated, you need a person who actually understands the industry, what's going on there. And it was helpful for me because I'm not a T-shaped person. I would call it like umbrella shape, because I do everything in every industry, design, code, whatever.
I like umbrella shaped. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah. That's kind of specific thing. But when you do the designs, when you do some front-end code, back-end code, you do .NET, you work with the virtual reality in different engines and Oculus and the other stuff. So yeah, it's not T-shaped anymore.
All right. So, Alexey, we've had you for a little while. Before we get out of here, I got some questions I want to ask to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. But before we do that, anything else that we didn't get a chance to cover today you think is worth calling out, specifically thinking about those junior designers, career shifters or people that are looking to maybe up their game when it comes to UX design? Any tips or advice that you might have for them to think about how to keep learning and continuing their education?
The best advice I can give in this direction, speaking about the junior designers, those who are just coming to the industry, is stay curious. Stay curious and keep doing things, no matter what. I speak from the perspective of the department manager who is hiring people as well. And usually when I get a bunch of resumes and portfolios, I go through every of them. I find how people are growing in time, how their portfolio is changing. And sometimes, you are getting to the portfolio and you compare it with a resume and you see, okay, this person finished the boot camp like 6 months ago. What do they have in their portfolio? and you see, okay, one project from the bootcamp, second project from the bootcamp, the third one they tried to do after the bootcamp, and nothing else in half a year. That's not good. That's not good. Keep doing something just for yourself, just for your new experience, no matter what. Don't be afraid to copy paste someone's work from the thing like how I can duplicate or replicate what they did. Understand how things are working. This is the most important.
I love it. Yeah, stay curious. That's such a great advice. I think that's even beyond junior designers. That's anybody. That's senior.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
executives. That's CEO. That's once you're retired.
Yeah.
Stay curious. I think that's just so important.
That's why I realized for myself that the phrase "stay hungry, stay foolish" that said was by Steve Jobs, like quoted by Steve Jobs. It has amazing sense. You require certain time and condition to realize what it actually means.
Absolutely. For sure. 100%. Cool. All right, Alexey. Well, it's been awesome talking to you today. So we're gonna get some questions here that we like to ask all of our guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
Great question. I was thinking about such things for a long period of time, and I'm not sure that there is a book that cannot be connected to the design at all.
I love that. So every book is a design book. I love it.
Yeah. Every book is a design book because it's either about communication, it's about management, research, whatever.
Oh, that's
Everything
so
that
smart.
happens in there.
Yeah.
So even from the perspective, like one of my favorite books actually is Alice in Wonderland. Compare it to the Agile Startup.
Tell me about this. This is interesting. What's your takeaway from Alice in Wonderland on agile startups?
if you don't have a goal, it doesn't matter where you go. The quote
Wow.
from the Cheshire the Cat.
I love it. All right. Fair enough. All right. I love it. That's a really fascinating topic, actually. That'd be a really great topic for another episode is design insights from just your sort of everyday random book or something. But yeah. I love that. But that goes back to like the idea of like staying curious. Like how can you tie things that you're learning, back to, UX design or your profession or your career? Because there's stuff like all through life, just like that apply incredibly well to something like UX design. So I love that, dude. That's such a great insight. Yeah,
everything is cross-connected, and even keep learning. There is things that are not connected to the design, but I keep studying from the perspective of the learning, and this is the CQB training. This is the craziest thing because if you don't know what it is, this is CQB is the abbreviation for short combat, so short distance combat. When everything happens in the close quarters, like in the rooms, corridors, and whatever. And why I speak about this from the design perspective, the guys were training there a lot on how to avoid injuries during the assaults. And one of the points that was mentioned, it's kind of interesting thing that about 80%, maybe more, I don't remember the exact number, of injuries happen from the friendly fire because the teams are not ready to perform correctly. And the same things happen in the IT industry when the teams are not working good, when they do not know each other and how to behave, they can fail the product.
That's a really interesting insight. Yeah, that's so true. I never really thought about that. Up next, what is your favorite non-design podcast? Might have a similar answer. Hey. They're all design related.
It's gonna be tricky because before I met you, I was not listening to podcasts at all.
Really? Oh wow!
Absolutely.
Right. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. So
do you listen to them now, though?
Yeah, I started listening to the podcast right now, and one of my favorites ones, I guess, from the Harvard Business Review. So I think about the management, and it's kind of the thing that I'm trying to understand right now because, as a designer, I also keep evolving and I keep understanding things and learning new. But one moment I realized that I don't understand what happens in the head of the product owners, in the stakeholders. It came to me as an idea that I should become a product owner myself to understand why some things are failing And, for the 2 years, we are working on the startup right now. And we started it together with another designer. Right now, I'm more focusing on the product owner side. And I realized, yes, we have this design, but we can postpone it. We don't need it at the moment because we need to focus on the other things. And I begin to realize, okay, that's where it fails. That's how it happens. That's what can be fixed. And that's where you can say, okay, it's not put into the table, into the trash bin, but it is postponed because the situation has changed, because you got new knowledge and you need to adapt it quickly.
I love it. Yeah, you mentioned HBR. I love HBR. HBR Ascend actually is one I really like, especially for like junior designers, because it's like early career professionals, and it's all this stuff like the soft skills, a lot of things that we talk about on the show. And I often share their articles on LinkedIn, try to kind of pull out the UX sort of nuances or details and try to speak about it through that lens. But HBR is a really good one, and their podcast is awesome. So that's a really great suggestion. All right, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you've eaten, something your grandma used to cook, something you've had at a restaurant somewhere. Favorite meal?
Anything you can get after a long hiking.
Ooh, anything is good after a long hike. I love that, man.
Exactly.
That's so cool. You guys got a lot of hiking spots out in Lithuania? I can imagine you guys can.
We travel a lot and
stuff out there.
Yeah, we are traveling with my wife a lot, and 1,000 kilometers to travel somewhere, it's not a big road.
Yeah, I mean, anywhere in Europe is so close. I mean, like you think about all the beautiful places you could go.
But Lithuania is great. And here everything you can just place a pin on the map, go there, and you will find something in there. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, you guys are close. So Lithuania that's like Northern Europe, right? Close to Poland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, close to Poland.
Yeah,
no.
So you guys are close to. Yeah. Okay. So you guys are like close to. I mean, hell, you could get to Germany pretty quick. Scandinavian countries are pretty quick. So obviously Poland is close. So yeah, you guys, you got a lot of cool stuff.
When you travel enough, the world is so small. I was in California twice and 12 hours, and you're on the other side of the Earth. Okay, the planet is small. We should do something.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah. All right. So that leads me to my next question, what is your favorite vacation spot?
There are two of them. So I love to have a long hikes in the forests, and no matter where. And I definitely love the seaside. So I even finished the scuba diving courses this summer just to enjoy the underwater world.
Yeah. Where do you like to go scuba diving?
Mostly locally. So lakes, very clean water, amazing fish. Yeah. So I enjoy it a lot.
Awesome, man. Are there any underwater archaeological type things or shipwrecks or something close by you like to?
I heard a few of them, but didn't visit it yet.
Okay.
They have a small sculpture alley in a lake next to the castle, like 30 kilometers away from me, and I'm willing to try it out next summer because the water is pretty chilly here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I imagine anywhere that far north has got to be pretty cold all year round.
Oh yeah.
Well, you have to report back. Let us know when you come back on how that dive was. All right. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Blender.
What is that? I'm not familiar.
3-dimensional tool.
Ah, cool. All right. What do you do with that? Do you just like play around with it, or do you have 3D printer or something?
I do multiple things. So yes, I do have 3D printer, and sometimes I do the print. But what I enjoy there is the node building of the 3-dimensional shapes. So it is very mathematical stuff because you are just connecting few pieces together and you are getting a new shape. And it can move in time, it can change, it can do whatever you want to do with your current knowledge. And every time you try some kind of new node there, you're getting new experience like, oh, whoa, I can do this.
That's really cool. I love that. Yeah, I never really messed around with like 3D printing or 3D models and stuff. But at some point, it'd be really cool to do that. Like, I'll kind of like building little like tools or little things for like my like, shed and stuff, like my pegboard, all the.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that stuff.
I
That's
enjoy
really
it
cool.
from the perspective that one of my large three-dimensional experiences happened with me maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we tried to build the VR game with the six-dimensional freedom, so you can walk whenever you want, you can jump up and down.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was one of my first startup failures because at that moment, there was no technology that allowed you to move in the virtual reality freely without any lags and any vomiting. But right now, I rebuilt one of our early experiences for Oculus, and I even tried it on several groups of students and my current coworkers, and some of them said like, "Wow, that's cool. I want to try it more." Or people were saying, "Nah, I'm not going there." And this is the best feedback because I recreated a space where you can also fall down. So visually below the ground, which is kind of scary and confusing, but the experience itself is great.
Oh my God. The idea of like falling to me, like I think I'm like scared of heights or something. I never used to be this way, but I don't know. As I got older and wiser, I feel like I'm like, you know what? I don't belong up here. I'm getting down. But that sense of falling, like in VR, to me is just like I don't know, man.
Uh, it, it,
That's not my thing.
that's why, as the UX designer, I'm experimenting what kind of height I can allow for a person to fall, so it won't be scary, it won't be traumatic, and it will lead to the situation when they can move or fall into the bad direction. So this is how it happens. And experiencing first myself leads to the experiments on the others. Like
You're using yourself as like the research participant. I love that. Yeah, it's interesting because it all depends on the context too that you're trying to go for, right? So I listened to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast, and he's amazing. I don't know if anybody ever listens to that, but it's a lot of history stuff. And he helped to create, he's a historian, but he helped to create the experience for the National World War I Museum in the United States. So they've created basically like a trench, and you can feel what it's like to have a bomb going off next to you, or like a grenade or a artillery shell hitting right next to you, and the noise and stuff. It's like they got complaints that it was too loud. And it's like, that's the point. The point is to experience what it was like for these guys in these trenches in World War I. We're not going to like make it 10 decibels when it was like hundreds of decibels and it could break your eardrum, like, we can't make it too loud. We don't want people to go to the hospital, but like that was the point. The point was to feel like you're there. So, I don't personally like falling in VR, but if that's the point, to get the thing across, then so be it, I guess.
it is not scary.
Anyway,
It is not
that's
scary.
fascinating. That's cool stuff.
Believe me.
I get this feeling in my stomach. I don't know. It's weird. I get this feeling like when I'm falling, when I have the sense of falling in a dream or something, right before you wake up. Anyway, I don't know. That's just me. Alexey, so this was awesome talking to you, man. I'm really excited about the work you guys are doing over at Coherent Solutions. Before we get out of here, why don't you give yourself a plug and let everybody know where they can find you and find some more information about what you guys are doing. And maybe, if you guys are hiring at all in Europe, maybe give yourself a plug if anybody's interested in Europe to joining your team.
Yeah, so I welcome everyone to have a look at Coherent Solution website. We recently relaunched it after a few attempts to make it better. And there you can find all the vacation spots that you can try to fill in. So we are not only in Europe, but also in North America. So there is a good opportunity for you to join the team.
Right on. Awesome. You have a URL. What's that URL?
Coherentsolutions.com. Everything is simple.
It's very easy to remember. Cool. All right. Well, awesome. Well, Alexey, you guys are doing some awesome work over there. I'm really excited to see all the stuff you guys are doing, training the next generation of UX designers with that apprenticeship program you got going on. This was fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing your insights. It's great having you on, man.
Thanks a lot.
Well, all right, y'all. That's it for Alexey and me for today. I hope we helped shed a little bit of light on how one company does the apprenticeship program and how an apprenticeship can really help you as someone who's new to the field, get in there and learn on the job with real world experience, real collaboration with real engineers, real product managers and all that stuff. But I'm curious, anybody out there gone through an apprenticeship program? What was your experience like? How'd it go? Let me know what you think on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I would love to hear from you. And if you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That would help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, then why don't you tell them about it? That would be fantastic. One more shout out to Abdullah for leaving some awesome feedback for the Beyond UX Design book. Don't forget, if you pick up the book from beyonduxdesign.com/book and you leave some honest feedback, you'll get a chance to win a shout out on the show just like this, a badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker, a free book, or even a chance to have a one-on-one with me. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book and pre-order your copy today. If you want to help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out all those Patreon sponsorship packages at beyonduxdesign.com/support. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin by supporting the show for as little as $3 a month. There's some awesome perks like that badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker. You can get a shout on the show every week. There's even a package to meet with me for 30 minutes every month. Remember to head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Figma. Use the promo code BeyondUX at checkout to get $100 off any of their Figma courses. Join over 4,000 designers from industry leaders like Shopify, Microsoft, and Amazon that have already signed up. So kickstart your Figma mastery journey today. Remember to sign up for the newsletter. Check out all the past episodes along with all the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all. All right, that's it. We're done.
Woohoo! The conversation was great. I would like to keep talking and talking, but at some point I think, okay, I need one more cup of coffee.
There you go.